Hey, everybody, it's Natalie Bencavanga, and welcome to another edition of Facts Over Fear. I really wanted to get back to basics here today, guys, and talk about reproductive justice because I know everything is literally on fire right now, but something that has continually been causing a lot of issues across this nation is our lack of essential health care and getting it to the people who need it most. So today I want to talk a little bit about where are we in the state of the journey of reproductive rights in this country. So let's just kick things off by starting with, in the United States today, the legal and practical landscape of abortion is dramatically different from what it was just a few years ago. I was about to say traumatically different because I think like Freudian slip, hello. After Dobbs, which ended in 2022, that prevented us from having this federal constitutional right to abortion. So now it's gone all the way back to the states. And now we've seen the fallout from that. States have adopted wildly varying laws, ranging from near total bans to strong protections to access. So, in many places where abortion remains legal and somewhat accessible, there are still limits, waiting periods, and travel burdens that are affecting how, when, and whether people can actually obtain care. So, this patchwork really means that anyone seeking abortion care and the providers who serve them must navigate an ever-evolving landscape, logistical, and medical terrain. In light of this complexity, I wanted to chat with an expert in the space to understand what rights we actually still have, where the work is that needs to be done, and how do we honestly undo this mess to ensure legal and safe access to essential healthcare for all who need and want it. So joining me today is Darah Boucher. She is from the Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania. Darah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I have to say, I'm reading this little intro that I wrote, and I'm just becoming more and more like wound up as I'm doing it. How do you manage to sort of stay centered in the middle of the storm? Can you talk a little bit about what you're facing right now at Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. It's an incredibly dynamic time for us at Planned
Mhm.
Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, related to budget cuts that we're facing,
Mhm.
and related to just this really dynamic time where education is, there's a lot of misinformation going around.
Yes.
And we are working to combat that by providing essential health care for those in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania as a whole.
Yeah, and really beyond that, because as we know, a lot of our surrounding neighbors have lost access to abortion care. Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like to provide care for people who are traveling across state lines?
Sure. I think that it is really important it's a critical time.
Hmm.
So we are providing care for people from other states, and they can absolutely receive care here in Pennsylvania. And while abortion remains legal and accessible in our state up to 24 weeks, we're also seeing more and more patients crossing state lines to get the care they need. So
Hmm.
since Roe v. Wade was overturned, clinics like Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania have become part of a much larger regional safety net. We're now caring for patients traveling not just from Ohio and West Virginia, but also from Kentucky and other parts of the Midwest and South where abortion bans have gone into effect. Um, and that increase in out of state patients has significantly put a strain on our system. Our staff are working incredibly hard to meet the demand, which means longer wait times for appointments, more logistical coordination for travel, and a growing need for financial and lodging support for patients who have to make the trip.
Darah, you had mentioned 24 weeks is still up to the point here where it is in Pennsylvania. Are there other legal restrictions or other things that people in Pennsylvania need to be aware of? Because what concerns me, to your point, is there is so much misinformation and disinformation, which I always like to say the difference is disinformation is very deliberate, which we see a lot of that swirling around. But what are some of the legal issues that people might experience even trying to access care here?
Absolutely. So at Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, we provide medication abortion, so
Hmm.
often called the abortion pill. So we provide that up for 11 weeks and include clinical procedural abortions as well. So all care is provided in compliance with the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act of 1982. And
Mhm.
while abortion is often considered a safe state for abortion access, the reality is far more complex. So, on
Mhm.
paper, the laws may seem reasonable, but the requirements create real hurdles for patients. So, anyone seeking an abortion must first have a pregnancy test and counseling visit. Then,
Mhm.
under the 24-hour waiting period, patients often return for multiple appointments, counseling, and the procedure, and sometimes follow up care. The counseling itself can include state mandated information intended to discourage abortion, turning what should be a straightforward, safe procedure into a process that can take days or even weeks as the pregnancy clock continues to click. And then that doesn't even count in for when we're talking about insurance. So,
Mhm.
insurance coverage is also restricted. Medicaid and state employee health plans only cover abortion in very limited circumstances, and private plans require costly optional riders. So, these policies mean that those with fewer financial resources face the greatest barriers to care. And restrictions like these disproportionately affect low income individuals, people of color, and rural communities. Yet 78% of Pennsylvanians agree that income or employment should not determine access to healthcare, including abortion.
It's really interesting to me when we're looking at abortion as this sort of this word that has so much energy around it. And that's why I've really been shifting to just framing it as essential healthcare. Can you talk about why this is essential healthcare for anybody who seeks it out or needs it or wants it?
Of course. Abortion is essential healthcare because everyone deserves the right to have bodily autonomy. Everyone
Hmm.
deserves the right to make decisions about their body. And as we navigate times where those rights are being stripped and taken away, it's more critical than ever for us to have knowledge and share information to where we can better make those decisions for ourselves.
If you're just joining us, I'm Natalie Bencavanga, and I'm with Darah Boucher of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania. We're talking about reproductive justice, you guys, because I feel like this issue has just been flying under the radar as so many other things have been on fire. So if you have any thoughts or questions for us, please leave them below in the comments. And we have one actually from Jeanette. She says, or excuse me, this person says that abortion is a solvable issue. We proved this in Colorado through a program of outreach, education, and free birth control. Abortions dropped 42% in teenagers the first year of the program. Who would have guessed it that access to birth control and comprehensive sex education would lead to, I don't know, a better understanding of how this all works and a drop in teen pregnancy? Darah, can you talk about the connection between access to education and birth control and how that helps reduce unwanted pregnancy?
Of course. Just for those of you that don't know, I'm currently serving as the co-interim CEO, but also my typical hat is I'm the VP of Education at Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania.
You wear
So this
all the
is
hats.
multiple hats and other hats. But I think that that is such a great point, is that
Mhm.
education is power. And when we're equipping youth with education, that ultimately we talk about bodily autonomy, when we talk about
Mhm.
consent, when we talk about birth control and the various ways in which they can access birth control, it really takes away the stigma when we talk about sex.
Yeah.
And through that reduction in stigma, we absolutely see that teen pregnancy rates go down. We see less abortions are occurring, and we see overall people feeling empowered in their bodies.
No, it's so true. And I want to go back to something that you touched on earlier when you were discussing about the need for essential healthcare, right? And I think what people forget a lot of times, or perhaps don't understand because of the disinformation machine, is organizations like Planned Parenthood do way more than just provide legal and safe access to abortion care. Can you talk about the other important things that Planned Parenthood provides and why all of these cuts to Medicaid and other federal cuts can do such a disservice to people's overall health who access these programs?
You're right. A lot of people don't realize the full scope of what Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania does. And of course, we provide abortion care, which is safe, legal, and an essential part of our comprehensive reproductive health care. But that's just one piece of what we do. The
Mhm.
majority of our work is focused on preventative and routine healthcare, the kind of care that keeps people healthy, informed, and empowered to make decisions about their own bodies and lives. So every single day, our health centers are providing birth control, cancer screenings, STI testing and treatment, gender affirming hormone therapy, and annual wellness exams. These are services that many of our patients rely on year after year, often because they may not have another healthcare provider. And then, of course, we also provide sexual and reproductive health education, advocacy, outreach in various communities. And it's an important part of our mission when we work with schools and community centers to make sure that people of all ages, from teens to adults, have accurate, inclusive, and judgment free information about their health.
And that is literally the goal here is providing information so that you can take charge of your own life and make your own choices. Because, girl, I got to tell you, I'm seeing some scary stuff in the news lately when it comes to how we are framing the conversation around ownership over these bodies and who gets to control bodies. And this idea that you could be forced to carry a pregnancy to term, to me, not only is a crime against humanity, but it's a real crime against our ability to make any choice for ourselves. It's a way to tumble people into poverty. And for the life of me, I can't understand why would we continue to promote this kind of agenda? And I saw this thing, Darah, the other day that really freaked me out on TikTok. And I can't find it. I took screenshots of it and I saw a few other creators talk about it. I think it's been removed. But there was this AI on TikTok that was of 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls that were pregnant. And it was all about like the beauty of pregnancy in young people. And I thought, this is psychotic that we are trying to push an agenda where we would think it's normal and healthy and safe for 12 or 13-year-old girls to be normalizing the idea of teen pregnancy. Can you talk about the impact of young people not going to be able to make their own choices when it comes to their ability to choose if and when to have a family? What could that do to us as a nation?
I think it's regression. I think
Mm.
it's beautiful to have a family. It's
Uh-huh.
beautiful if that is the choice that people want to make. The reality, though, is a lot of these decisions are not planned.
Yes.
When youth are making these decisions or these things are happening to them, there's a lot of confusion around it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of uncertainty that come with a decision like that. And it's essential for
Mhm.
youth to understand their bodies. It's essential for them to understand what's happening,
Mhm.
what pregnancy even means. And a lot of youth don't even really know how pregnancy happens. And so
Mhm.
that's why sex education is so incredibly important. And, you know, I think a place where people feel empowered to make those choices is so crucial. And by forcing youth, I have not seen that video, although I'm sure the youth this week and to next we'll probably be hearing about it. They often like to bring that up in schools, but I just imagine that it's just so sad to kind of
Yeah.
there's a lot of stigma around teen pregnancy, and to post videos like that is really harmful.
Yeah. And speaking of harmful, I want to get back to this idea around disinformation because I think a lot of us knew that the fall of Roe would be just the beginning of them trying to control reproduction. And now we're seeing conversations around banning, the morning after pill, banning birth control pills, trying to take away our options when it comes to preventing pregnancy. Can you talk a little bit about, and I know you're not a medical doctor, so I'm not expecting that level of detail, but just the importance of understanding the difference between preventative after morning care as opposed to abortion pills, and why do you think they are coming after one that is not an abortifacient?
I think that's a really good question. And actually, it's funny you lift that up. That's one of our favorite questions that we do get from youth. And also, one of when we do tablings at Pride or various spaces, is a question we often ask. And I think it's really unfortunate. There's a lot of misinformation around what Plan B is or what a
Mhm.
morning after pill is. And truly, it stops ovulation. That doesn't and it doesn't terminate a pregnancy. It's not an abortion pill. And I think that's another element of this conversation of why education is so important, is so
Mhm.
critical. When we have youth that and people that don't know the difference, it can be rather confusing. Oh, I can just go get an abortion at CVS, or I can just order abortion pills online. And that's not necessarily true. They're
Mm.
not understanding the full scope of what that necessarily means and the various processes that are in place.
We've seen since the fall of Roe just so many things that I think a lot of us said, I knew this would happen, take place, including people bleeding out in parking lots because they've been denied life saving care when they need it. What is something, or is there something that's actually surprised you about what they've either tried to put forth since the fall of Roe, or something that you just were even like, I didn't expect that to happen?
Um, I think we have an overwhelming amount of support. And so
Mm.
I think in the moment of Roe, and it's hard to kind of think back because I feel like there have been a lot of additional changes since then.
You're like, I've also just blacked that part out, like
We just have been
mental
blacking that
block.
out since we've gone. But I do think that, you know, on a more positive note, I mean, I think there's just a lot of access is being stripped away and continues to
Yeah.
be stripped away. And I think that was surprising. I think, it doesn't stop with Roe. And I think the overarching ways in which we are being impacted is insightful.
Mhm.
However, I do think the amount of community support and interest has skyrocketed. And I think in that regard, that is a positive and pleasant surprise to see the ways in which our community partners and our communities around Pittsburgh have really stepped up and advocated for us, which is so wonderful while everybody is navigating at their own organization, their own new barriers, I guess we could say, in lieu of this administration. It has been really wonderful to have community support.
Amen. I mean, I remember right when it happened in 2022, I was you know, contacted by actually an old teacher of mine who is part of your board. And she was the reason that I ended up joining Planned Parenthood's board here in Western Pennsylvania, was because of one of my teachers. And I think that's just kind of cool too, because I remember when that happened, I said to myself, I got to get off the sidelines. Like, talking about this isn't enough. I need to get involved and join and do something. And I will tell you, I was also surprised at the level of passion and support that I had seen from the community when I started talking about this issue more, and working on these issues with the wonderful team of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania more. But I think what shocked me the most was just learning how fragile it really is here in Pennsylvania. Can we talk a little bit about the balance of power here? Because for people who don't live in Pennsylvania, this is a very purple state. We have a lot of support, particularly, I think, for this issue. But when we're talking about our House of Representatives and our Senate, we're like walking a very fine line. Can you talk a little bit about why we need to really ramp up support for reproductive rights?
Of course. I think it's particularly interesting when we think about the current governor being
Mhm.
supportive of abortion rights, but numerous medically unnecessary targeted regulation of abortion provider laws make it difficult to access abortion care in the state. So,
Mhm.
part of Pennsylvania's TRAP laws, as they're called, include requirements related to facilities and reporting that make providing essential care extremely difficult. And many are designed to shutter abortion clinics without basis in medical standards, even on something as simple as telehealth, which become the norm as COVID has progressed. The
Mhm.
FDA has allowed telehealth for medical abortion, but Pennsylvania TRAP laws require that all abortions occur at a registered abortion facility. So, this includes the abortion pill, which could be self administered in the comfort of a patient's home. It's also very difficult to register a new abortion facility in Pennsylvania. We're often asked, why don't you open an abortion clinic in blank town? Requirements include intensely over detailed regulations and inspection costs meant to present an overwhelming financial barrier to most organizations from opening a new clinic. And while we're thankful that Governor Shapiro's administration is broadly supportive of sexual and reproductive rights, Pennsylvania does not have express constitutional or statutory protections for abortion. In
Mm.
fact, legislation in the Commonwealth is often directly hostile toward abortion providers. And the facts are the facts. Abortion bans and restrictions are unpopular, and Pennsylvanians deserve constitutionally access to safe, affordable abortion.
Let's talk a little bit about what you just said there around this idea of it's not in the state constitution, and we saw now that it's fallen away at the federal level with the Supreme Court's decision. You know, I hear people say, "Well, we need it to be enshrined in our federal constitution that everyone has the right to a safe and legal abortion," which I agree. But I think sometimes, and I made this mistake before I joined the board and really got to see what was going on and understand it more in a detailed way, that's just the basement of what we should have, right? Because to your point, even if it's legal, that doesn't mean it's going to be accessible. That doesn't mean it's going to be affordable. That doesn't mean there's not going to be all these hoops. I mean, there's always those memes online that says, "Oh gosh, if we regulated guns the way we regulated uteruses, think of think of how things would be different, right? All these waiting periods and these restrictions around it." So when you think of the future and you think of the dream of what it would be like, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because I'm trying to be optimistic, Darah. Okay. What would it look like? What does healthcare, essential healthcare and abortion care look like at a level of legality, but also accessibility?
Bodily autonomy. I mean, I think it just comes back to I was in the Peace Corps, so I have a very different view also of just public health and what that should look
Mhm.
like and the landscape that we should have here in the States. But I think that it's incredibly important for people to have access.
Yeah.
And we know that people just don't. And
Mhm.
to not only when we're not even speaking about abortion, but to all healthcare. I mean, access to healthcare is essential for people's overall wellness in life. And unfortunately, I think that due to not only abortion bans, but due to just various restrictions, it makes it hard for Pennsylvanians to have access to that essential health care, to abortion, to the various other health care that they may need.
Mhm. Sarah, as we wrap up, I want people to feel as though they are empowered to help make change. And I know there's a lot of ways in which they can get involved, not just with Planned Parenthood, but of course, wherever you live, whatever organization is near and dear to you. But in this case, where can people go if they want to learn more about Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania
If you would
and
like to
maybe donate?
and maybe donate. If you would like to support our work, please donate at ppwp.org. If you would also like to volunteer with us, advocate with us, fight alongside us, that's also a place where you can look into that information. And then also, please follow us on social media. Our ad is at ppwpa to stay informed, to get involved, and um, ultimately, we're here to make sure essential healthcare stays accessible for everyone, and we'll continue that fight.
Amen. I'm just so glad that I have gotten to know you through this work, and you are such a fierce advocate. And honestly, you're so knowledgeable and you make it so accessible for people. So I appreciate you so much coming on and sharing your wisdom with all of us. And I hope to do this more regularly with you so we can continue to spread the truth around reproductive health and hopefully squash some disinformation along the way. So everybody, thanks as always for joining us for another edition of Facts Over Fear. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.